Hello everyone, Palworld just dropped some major news in the form of new mechanics, new pals, new structures, and even new weapons. Alright, first up, let's talk about the most recent reveal they've made, and it may be even bigger news than the trailer itself. An entirely new mechanic, what seems to be a possible pal-like excursion. They made this announcement over on their Discord channel, basically saying that they will be releasing new constant information pertinent to what's actually in the December update every single day up until its launch. Now, in this pal-like excursion, you can actually see that there's a group of 4 different pals that were sent into a dungeon to go through and retrieve loot, and it was captioned with "Pals exploring dungeons on their own, ? May they get lots of treasure and return home safely," basically indicating that you can go through and send out a group of pals to excavate a dungeon or a cave. Now in this short little clip, you can see that Lamball's actually carrying some palladium, and then you can see that our little froggy buddy in the back actually has a small little bag, and that bag is usually reminiscent of a drop from an actual pal, indicating that they can both collect ore or different types of stones, as well as actual drops from pals. Now there are other games that I know have done something similar to this, like Fallout Shelter, and there's been many other games as well, but essentially you send out an excavation party to go through and farm resources, but at the same time they also passively gain experience, and usually there are tiers of difficulty associated with this type of mechanic, basically meaning the more difficult the challenge of the cave or the actual expedition is, the more experience you'll gain and the better or the rare loot that you can actually get as well. However, not all these expeditions were always successful. Sometimes if you selected something that was too difficult for something that was much lower level, let's say a level 5 pal for a level 20 expedition, it's very possible you could fail. I would love to see all these mechanics implemented, because it would also be another way you could valuably gain experience and remove some of the grind from resource grinding as well. I am definitely excited about this, and I honestly think it's even bigger news than the actual trailer itself. Alright, but that wasn't the only news. They also confirmed that there will be new actual working pieces in your base. They went through and showed off Espresso running like a little hamster buddy, trying to generate some sort of power for your base. We also do get another look at the Japanese style buildings here in the background, which most likely confirms this is in fact an actual player's base and not a village, indicating that there are also probably new building pieces, as well as a cool little lamp sitting there on the stool. Alright, now speaking of the trailer, let's dive in and take a look at everything that was announced in the trailer, and there's quite a few hidden details scattered throughout. First off, in the trailer, we start off with a group of bandits being ambushed by this group of pals. These pals look like a walk-in version of Jet Racket, if I'm being honest, but they've got a very different and ominous color scheme. We also get to see it use both its claws and its tail for attacks, indicating you will certainly need to pay attention to visual cues to see what moves it may be using. Then what appears to be the leader of this faction comes to save the day. However, he quickly gets jumped by a massive humanoid pal reminiscent of Blazamon. This could be a subspecies or a new pal altogether. Either way, I think it looks awesome. We also get to see it use both its hands and its feet for combat, which also indicates it may have a wide variety of moves. We will be circling back to this scene at the end once we cover all the other information, because this scene leaves a lot of questions. Next up, we see 2 new pals with the player confronting this faction leader. On the left side, there is a majestic, antlered pal reminiscent of Eikendeer in some ways, but with flatter, ridge-like antlers and detailed textures on its side, giving it a much more royal vibe. Then on the right, there's an intriguing twist on Petilia's usual leaf and flower design, now featuring shadowy, darker elements. Next up, as well, looks like a very angry version of Vixie. Most likely its bigger, older cousin. Probably heard that we've been not so nice to Vixie to get all those perfect pal spheres and farming materials, so it's come back with a vengeance. These aggressive little pals that look like either cats, lions, or foxes, I'm not really sure, show up a few different times throughout the trailer, so they definitely seem like they're pretty common, and they are extremely aggressive. Now, if you look really closely at the head of the first one, immediately after the player stuns them with the bullets, you'll see the grayish color on top is not actually fur, but fire, making me think with the black and red color scheme and then the flames that this would most likely be a dark and fire pal combo, which are 2 of my personal favorites, so I'm pretty excited about this little pal. We can also see that this same pal on the back is charging up this large dark sphere attack, which looks really cool and also helps possibly imply being a dark element. Then we get a clip of what appears to be a player's base. There appears to be quite a few new structures here, so let's break this scene down. We can see that there's a few pals just standing on the left-hand side of the screen. There's a spider pal just chilling near the new Japanese-style buildings, which I looked up and they are called shoji. Not sure if I pronounced it correctly though. Then we can also see more of the little red and black pal that we saw in the last scene on the left. And then on the right, we actually see a couple of different pals actually working in what appears to be some sort of ore or mining operation. Also, one of those working pals is a new pal that appears to be mining what looks like gold rocks with the little boar. So I'm a little torn on whether this is a player base or a village, but I'm leaning more towards a player base because of the next thing in this scene. On the left-hand side here, you can see what appears to be kind of like a cloning chamber or a sleeping pond. Now, of course, that is just speculation, but if it is a cloning chamber, that means we could probably clone pals with those perfect stats that we work so hard to get, or maybe even a sleeping pod that could possibly either heal the pal faster than the pal box, or possibly provide a passive experience gain to help raise low-level pals to higher levels at a quicker rate. Honestly, the leveling process in the game is very grindy, especially once you've already caught 12 of every pal, so if there's another way to level up newly hatched pals at a faster rate, I'm all for it, even if we need to sacrifice sacrifice, say, specific materials or rare items to make that happen, it's probably far less grindy than having to go out and farm all of the experience for every new hatched pal that you choose to get. Then the next scene showcases a new bipedal pal with two-tone hair and a dress-like silhouette. This pal also exudes dark fire characteristics. In the first scene, it fires a dark orb attack at you, and then in the next scene, you can see it holding a flame. This is definitely a theme with a lot of the pals that have been featured in this trailer, is the dark fire element, be it through attacks or even the design itself. In the next scene, we get to see two different new pals, one of which is in the player's control with two-tone hair and a tail. Then Markins down its side with its feet matching the color of those markings. And then summons a small circle or ring projectile and launches it at the opposing pal. This was a very fast attack animation, so it was really difficult to capture, but based on what I could tell, it seemed like it would either be a normal or an electric-based attack. Then on the other side, we see what appears to be a new horse pal. When the scene first starts, you can see the black and blue pal charging up a dark attack, but you will see that as soon as the player pal lands its move, that attack gets cancelled, but it does appear most likely again to have a dark element. In the following scene, we then get to see the little black and red pal again, and appears to have summoned a large dark ring that is huge around the player, a massive radius. And then additionally, it also charges up a huge dark sphere and throws it at the player's pal, and then that singular orb explodes into a huge AoE attack with purple balls of doom flying in all directions. This little pal definitely looks far more ferocious than its initial appearance lets on. Next up, we get to see a very strange looking pal. It looks like a mysterious or hooded penguin. It appears to be sporting a tucked in wing design with an extra long tail. Its design seems honestly very simple. However, perhaps once this curious pal raises its arms or possibly its wings, even though I know penguins don't fly, maybe there'll be more details on the underside, or simply when it uses its abilities. Then at 106 in the trailer, we see the player release a purple-like pal. What's interesting though is I can't tell if this is another new pal, or if it's just a change in lighting that's thrown me off. This kind of looks like the dark shadowy figure from the beginning. I mean, it's got these same 6 little triangle components on its head, so it's the same 4 floating wings. Well, it looks like honestly forks, to be honest. I'm gonna call this the fork pal from now on. This is the fork pal. But it basically looks the exact same, it just apparently has a different color, whereas the other one was bright pink on the front, this one appears to be all dark on the back. But again, that does match the whole dark color scheme that's going on, so I think this very well could be the same pal, just the lighting's throwing me off. In the following scene, we then get to see the raid boss battle be started, where we see giant dark tornadoes and more of the blue and black horse-like pal. Though this time we get to see those pals charge up an attack, and again, it looks like a dark attack. I know I keep going on and on about the dark theming, but I'm telling you, if you pay attention, a lot of the moves and the designs represent something dark and ominous, so I'm definitely curious to see what exactly this means or represents when the actual update drops. Then we finally return back to the scene with what could be the player's base, where it showcases the long hallway that shows off the floor, the walls, the ceiling, and the window design. Then once you're outside, you could also see the top of these slanted roofs, a lantern, the door, and what appears to be an awning over the door. And the same awning is used and featured in multiple doors in the background as well, as well as different balconies and basically covered porch-like areas. So there seems to be a lot of different types of building pieces being implemented here in this build. If this is in fact a player build, then we can certainly expect a whole lot of different components, and not just specific base building components, but actual lighting sources or even other ways to add on to specific details to our base like an awning. Then the next scene, we can see the same pal with the markings charge up an electric attack, and that attack actually consumes the dark attack from the black and blue horse-like pal. Then you can see the other black and blue pal allow what appears to be a grounded base attack at the player. Then as we round out the trailer, you can also see the new raid boss, which appears to be the same type of pal from the beginning. In this specific scene though, it looks like a massive ominous dragon-like pal with a glowing energy sword that looks like it came straight out of Halo. It honestly looks insane, and that move looks really cool. I am sure it is going to be one heck of a challenging and visually stunning fight. Then on the actual thumbnail for the trailer, we also see there is a few new pals showcased here as well. There's what appears to be like an overcharged Univolt with kind of its blue lightning dazzling effects. Considering that I think Univolt's kind of mid-tier when it comes to the way pals designs are, I think this one looks awesome, so I'm super excited about that. Then we also see an Egyptian style pal kind of resembling Lunaris in a way, but with the Anubis inspired design. So this pal also has a cleaver in its hand, so almost maybe a female version of Anubis, or maybe a subspecies of Anubis, similar to how like Robin Quill has a male version and then the Terra appears to be a female version. If you look at their faces, that could be a very similar concept here, basically a female version or a subspecies of Anubis. Everyone I know loves Anubis because honestly there's pretty much no reason not to have him on your team. He just does so many different things well, so if we're getting a different variant of it with different specific stats or even specialties, that's definitely exciting. And then there's one more new pal in this image that wasn't actually featured in the trailer, and it's the one that's front and center that looks like it's a mix of a cat and a rabbit, and it looks also dark and red and evil, basically following the exact same pattern every other pal has. Doesn't really give us too much more context, but yeah, it pretty much follows the same trend every other PAL has so far. Alright, now let's return to the trailer and talk about everything that's not PAL related. For example, the new weapons. There's a possible energy like Gatling gun, which could support possible customizable ammo. If you could use all sorts of ammo in a Gatling gun to inflict freeze, burns, shock. Honestly, I'm really excited about this. This thing looks awesome. There's also appears to be what I believe is the M1 Garand, and then some AK style rifles, and a revolver as well. Then going back to the thumbnail, there's also a lightsaber-like weapon, possibly tied to the energy mechanic introduced with the Gatling gun. Not sure if they're one and the same, or if they're built off the same technology, but they both look like they have a similar element coming out of the actual weapon. Alright, now let's hop back over to the initial fight scene, and let's talk a little bit of speculation here. And then I do have one more source of information for you at the very end. But in this specific fight scene here, I honestly believe it's hinting at a deeper interaction between players and pals, potentially expanding mechanics like training, bonding, or even ARC-style creature capturing. Given the recent legal concerns over Palworld's capturing system, the developers might be exploring alternative gameplay systems for taming pals, such as defeating and feeding them after battle, giving them specific things, or even once you've already captured them, instead of feeding them or petting them like you can on the radio wheel, maybe you could simply just train with them, and it could just be a cosmetic thing where you're allowed to see them in a new light or have different interactions with them. Either way though, it seems like it could be a new mechanic or a new way to tame or train them, given the whole legal battle that's going on with the balls, or the spheres if you will. And we've already seen a lot of changes made to those, and it seemed like in the trailer, anytime the sphere was released, that it was actually cut off to try to minimize showing the sphere or the lack of a sphere and being thrown in a specific direction. And then the last bit of information I have is actually in regards to building. They essentially confirmed online that building would be getting a huge overhaul here in December, basically making it easier and more approachable. Because honestly, building for me in Palworld is one of the pain points in Palworld, as I feel other survival games like Grounded or Ark just do it better. So they basically confirmed that you should be able to build over pre-existing pieces, and if that is the case, similar to how Ark Survival Evolved was, you'd basically get back the materials that you previously used to craft the prior item. However, in Ark, you actually only got half the materials back, and then in ASA, they removed the feature entirely because you can actually just pick up the pieces now, and you no longer have to break them down. So if we can get a combination of Grounded and Ark where we could relocate pieces like you can in Grounded, but have great snapping points like you do in ASA, I'm all for it. I would love to see building become more important and a priority and just more versatile in Palworld here, because that's definitely one of my least favorite things to do, and I really like building in survival games. Alright, well that covers all the new reveals that we have for this December update here in Palworld. What's your thoughts, and what are you most excited about? Are you excited about the new pals, new weapons, new mechanics, new structures? Let me know down in the comments. And if you enjoyed today's video, then please consider leaving a like and subscribing for future Palworld content.